Hello again. No fishing again today. it's, it's been pretty grim. I've got some maggots in the fridge. I think they're about ready to about ready to draw their pension. I thought I'd continue with a video about the various interesting places I pass on my way down to the River Swale. So when I leave Burniston and travel down the old A1 and take a left turn, I pass through a place with a funny little name, Dawney, and as you go through the village on the left hand side, there's a little interesting building. I passed it no end of times, but I noticed it had a little plaque on the wall, and when I went to see it, it's a Wesleyan chapel which opened in 1818, and I can find nothing about it anywhere. Villagers, they must have been married there, had their children baptised there, and maybe even some of them had their funerals from there. But there's no evidence anywhere. It seems a shame. All that social history had disappeared. And that road eventually joins the A61 near Skipton-on-Swale. It turned right there, heading down towards Ripon, and you come to what has obviously been an important crossroads at some time, and there's a sign there, Ward's Corner. And taking a left at Ward's Corner, you go down Wide How Lane, heading towards Topcliffe. And on the way down Wide How Lane, you come to a really interesting place, Baldersby St James, with its magnificent church, which is dedicated to St James the Great. The Baldersby estate had belonged to the Devonshire family, who are well-known owners of Chatsworth Estate, a massive estate in Derbyshire, Chatsworth House. But in 1845 they sold it to the railway king, George Hudson, who had obviously made a fortune on the railways. Although they'd only been going 20 years, he'd obviously capitalised on it. But he only stayed there for 9 years. And in 1854 he sold it to the 7th Viscount Dawney. Although they were an English family, the title was in fact an Irish title. Which was quite useful because quite a number of these people were in politics. If you had an English title, of course, you weren't entitled to sit in the House of Commons, whereas Viscount Dawney, having an Irish peerage, he could sit in the House of Commons, and a substantial number of people in similar situations did so. So it was very convenient. So the 7th Viscount was a chap called William Dawney, and he was very much in love with the daughter of the Bishop of Bath and Wells, very high church, a woman called Mary Isabel Bagot. Now, Dawney had inherited Wycombe Estate near Scarborough, and he was a rich man, and the Bishop of Bath and Wells was obviously very much aware of this, and they came to a gentleman's agreement. The bishop would agree to the marriage of Dawney and his daughter Isabel on condition that William Dawney built 7 churches. You're not talking you're not talking coppers here. A very expensive business. Anyway, William and Isabel, they got married, and they had for the next 10 years they had 1 child per year. My God. Now, William Dawney had a friend who was an architect, a chap called William Butterfield, and together they set about this project. So they started off with the building of St Helens and All Saints at his estate in Wycombe, which, as I say, was in near Scarborough, and continued on with the renovation. In fact, it wasn't a renovation, it was the rebuilding of St Matthew's at the place called Hutton Buskell. Dawney and Butterfield were big supporters of the Oxford movement. This was a group of intellectuals who wanted to bring back high church. They thought that the Church of England was sort of moving down market, as it were. And they wanted to bring back mass and thuribles, these sort of incense swingers, these sort of incense baskets. You fill the place full of incense. And Butterfield started the High Victorian Gothic revival architecture. His buildings, which are mainly churches, and they reflect this style with their very ornate interiors, the most famous of which is All Saints in St Margaret Street in London, which is really impressive inside. Even if you're not religious, it's a pretty impressive place. He also had overseas commissions. He designed St Paul's Cathedral in Melbourne in Australia, in Mumbai, or Bombay as it used to be known. The Church of St John the Evangelist, which is known as the Afghan Church. The British suffered a terrible defeat in Afghanistan, the Second Afghan War, when hundreds of soldiers were slaughtered in Afghanistan. Right. Nothing much changes. We're at it again. This church was built as a memorial to the soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan. Hundreds of them, if not thousands. And back in this country, designed Manchester Town Hall, St Pancras Station, which has just been completely renovated, St James the Less, I wonder who he was, in Pimlico in London, and St Augustine's in Queensgate, also in London. But fortunately for us, he also built this huge church to St James the Great in remotest Yorkshire. He not only designed the church, it was a complete village. The whole village was designed by him, Baldersby St James. It's totally different from anything else you find in Yorkshire, with its sort of small tiles on the roof, which are sort of semi-hipped. Look that up on the internet. The notable thing about the Church of St James the Great is the steeple. It's 160 feet high, with a sort of golden cockerel on the top. And of course in the Vale of York you can see it for miles. Another well-known chap who wrote about architecture, I think he was probably an architect himself, a chap called Charles Eastlake. He wrote a book about the Gothic revival, and he said of Butterfield, and I'm going to have to read this out. In estimating the value of his skill, posterity may find something to smile at as eccentric, something to deplore as ill-judged, and much that will astonish as daring. But they will find nothing to despise as commonplace or mean, which I think is a pretty fair assessment of Butterfield's architecture. It might not be to many people's taste, but you can't ignore it. It's really in your face. The building of St James the Great in Baldersby St James started in 1855 and they finished it in 1858, so it took about 3 years to complete the whole village and the church, which is, when you see it, is pretty impressive. I mean, whilst it's a huge building for a small village, it's not as ornate as some of his other work, and it's probably all the better for that. I mean, tragically, the 7th Viscount, William Dawney, he died in 1857, just as the whole project was reaching its conclusion, so he never saw it finished. He was only 44, it was a shame. Having 10 children, that was dreadful. I mean, here we are almost 170 years later, and the village is as it was. I mean, the whole place is listed, but very little has changed. Even the school, which is opposite the church, is still the school for the area. When you drive along the A1M and you look east, you'll see this church, and what you notice is it has this wonderful steeple. Looking even more magnificent in this beautiful autumn sunshine, with that shiny golden cockerel on the top. So this is the Lich Gate, is the entrance, and again your eyes are drawn to this steeple and this cockerel, this golden cockerel sitting on the top. This is the interior of the church of St James the Great at Baldersby St James. The foundation stone was laid in 1856. And it was one of many buildings built by Lord Dawney, who lived in Baldersby Hall. The church is quite magnificent, and it's all laid out for Harvest Festival. Beautifully done. Sheaves of corn, you don't often see them these days. I wonder if they keep them from one year to the next. Lots of different kinds of apples and flowers. Wonderful stained glass window there. Really, really high. Yes, it's a wonderful place. Beautiful circular window. And then these windows with the west windows have these coats of arms. Quite magnificent. I do like stained glass. This is the floor of the chancel, and these stones here are flecked with fossils. And I think these tiles are Minton tiles. I think all these churches have wonderful ladies who come and do the flowers. Beautiful stained glass. And of course the sun from the west today. Ooh, that's a bit bright. Bleaching the colours. The big house on the estate, Baldersby Hall, although it had a different name. I think sometime it was called Newby House. It was used by the armed forces during the war. And then it was taken over by a school for girls. They had been in another big house, Duncombe House, near Helmsley. But when the lease ran out, the Duncombe family wanted to move back into the house, and so Queen Mary's had to find somewhere else to go. And so they now have Baldersby Hall, and it's a private school run by a trust. If you're passing, it's definitely worth making a detour to have a look at. Anyway, hopefully we'll get on the riverbank and might get some video of fishing, but it doesn't look like it. I'm just staring up this window here. It's hammering down with rain again. Anyway, take care. We'll see you again. Bye bye.